It's October 6th of 1973. I was 10 years old, and it was Yom Kippur. And my family, we weren't particularly religious, but we never watched TV or listened to the radio on Yom Kippur. That was the day. We tried to keep it as much as we could. And after services, all these people start coming over to my house. We lived next door to the synagogue. And the radio's on. I knew something wasn't right. And it was the Yom Kippur War that changed Israel forever. And I believe it is my responsibility as Maradatra of this congregation. I always have my phone on, always. I have it on me, and I have it on except from 2 to 3 Shabbat afternoon. That's it. I have it on 167 hours a week. And I check the news. And to be honest, it's usually who won the game, who Taylor Swift is dating. But today, as we all know, was different. And some people are already talking about, well, who's responsible, who's at fault, who's to blame. Today is not that day. Today is not that day. Today is simply to be in support of Israel, to have our hearts there. Each one of us has probably got a story. I tell you, my nephew, Ruth's brother and sister-in-law's son, he's getting married next week. He's probably getting called up today. Right? Everyone's got a story. That's why we come together. And whatever differences we have across whatever aisle, today isn't that day. God willing, we can fight about this later. And we can argue, and we can have discussions, and we can have elections, and we can write articles. But today ain't that day. Today is the day that all of our hearts are in Jerusalem. But Jerusalem is Zion. That's where we get the word Zionism. It's about all of Israel, about all the people who came before, who dreamt about Israel. And I was going to talk about Israel today anyway, because one of Israel's greatest educators passed away on Tuesday. Her name was Dr. Alice Shalvi. She was everything that was good about Israel, everything that is good about Israel. And she passed away on Tuesday, and I wanted to share a little bit of her story and to share one of her teachings. Some of you may have met her. She was in town a couple times. Some of you may have heard about her. Some of you have never heard about her, but she absolutely transformed Israel in a marvelous way. She was born in Germany, October 16th of 1926, to a modern Orthodox family and very Zionistic. And the family moved to England in the 1930s. Her parents were very prescient about what was happening in Germany at the time, and they left, and she made Aliyah in 1949. She created a school in 1975 called Pelach, which was for Haredi girls, and she earned the Minister of Education's Education Prize. She was the founder of the Israeli Women's Network. She is one of the reasons that women can serve in combat in Israel. She really is in almost every way the founder of feminism in Israel, and created so many opportunities there. She also won the Israel Prize in 2007. She was the director of the Schechter Institute for Conservative Judaism in Israel as well. She cut across all movements, and she was an incredibly brave person who broke down barriers, and in many ways is the full story of Israel. Israel wasn't a threat to the Middle East because it was Jewish. Right? People didn't like it, but that wasn't the threat. If Israel had been a theocracy and an autocracy and had been strictly a patriarchy, it would have been much more accepted. It would have fit into the neighborhood better. But Israel was the threat because it was democratic. Israel was the threat because it was egalitarian, that it had a free press, that it had, say, a separation of shul and state. The threat was that it was building skyscrapers that everyone could get to the top of. That was the threat. Adat Shalvi is part of what made Israel the right kind of threat to the Middle East. Because it said you can live with freedom, you can live in democracy, and you can live with prosperity. And that's not what the autocrats in the Middle East wanted to hear. So I'm going to share with you some of Dr. Shalvi's own words today. She wrote them for Passover, but I believe they're extremely pertinent today. It's a little bit long, but her words I think are powerful, and I think her words are what we need. So this is from her article called Magid, Storytelling. The Seder night is a night of storytelling. The name of the text we read is Haggadah, a story. At the heart of the story lies the section called Magid, storyteller. At 2 points in the Seder we say, V'higadata levencha, you shall tell your child. The story that the Haggadah presents is the story of the Jewish people. Beginning with the time when our ancestors were idol worshipers, it ends with Dayenu, a song of survival. In every single generation, it is a person's duty to perceive themselves as though they had come out of Egypt. For it is not only our ancestors who were redeemed, but we were redeemed with them. Is it not therefore incumbent upon us to bring the list of wonders up to date? There is, after all, another injunction at the beginning of the story to tell the story, and we must continue the story, to tell of the Holocaust, to tell of the War of Independence in which a tiny community of Jews resisted the onslaught to establish the State of Israel, to tell the tale of the Six-Day War of 67, when Israel Defense Forces not only withstood a similar attack, but also liberated the Kotel, enabling Jews once more to worship there. To tell of 1973, when a dastardly surprise attack on the holiest day of the Jewish year led to a long conflict that cost Israel too many lives, yet ultimately led to peace with neighboring Egypt. My mother and grandmother, both born in Galicia, used to tell of the pogroms in Eastern Europe before the First World War, of how Jews left their doors open on the Seder night to prove they were not murdering children in order to drink their blood. And I recall the miserable Seder night of 1934 when my father had already fled Nazi Germany, while my mother, her mother, my brother, and I still remained behind, not knowing if and when we might be permitted to join them. In the Seder, there is an invitation to let all who are hungry come and eat. Let all who are needy come and partake of the offering. The Seder night is one on which families congregate, but it is also a time where Jews everywhere open their doors to those who have nowhere to celebrate. In 1941, the Jews in the East End of London celebrated a makeshift Seder in a public air raid shelter, while overhead German bombs obliterated their homes. That same year, the Jews who remained in the Warsaw Ghetto added to the Gutta a prayer asking God to forgive them for being unable to fulfill all the commandments relating to the festival. Each year, my father used to relate how, as a prisoner of war in Russia in 1919, he succeeded in rounding up the necessary ingredients to bake matzah and boil eggs for the Seder. In 1944, while we were evacuated from London to a small village in a safe part of England, my father undertook to organize hospitality for Jewish soldiers nearby. I tell these stories time and time again to my children, grandchildren, and their children to inculcate in them the essential values and observances. So long as the Jewish people exists, so long as Jews gather, no matter what the circumstances, to mark the exodus from slavery, the telling can, must, and will continue. Each generation has its own chapter to add to the chronicle of God's wonders, and it is incumbent upon us to do so. For the more one dwells on the story, the more praise one deserves. May the memory of Dr. Alice Shalvi be a blessing. May the lives of all those lost who we'll be saying Yizkor for next year. May we always remember who we truly are. May we never give that up. And may we be a blessing.